We talked about last month that they can be gnawing away at your life, eating holes in you, tearing you up. And then when you have a drought, and you know the Bible says Jesus is the living water. When you have a drought with the water, it can be devastating if you have a drought with Christ, right? And so we need to look to these things, and we need to make sure that we're dealing with them and not letting those bugs that keep tunneling and eating away at us. And you know what I'm talking about because you've had things eat away at you. We even use the phrase, that's eating at me, right? So with that in mind, we also have the text that we're covering today that you could use that illustration also. But I think today's text is probably the most profound text in the Bible, the clearest text on relationships. You want to take notes if you can, and get some of the points. You'll find that some of these are so definitive regarding relationships and solutions. So we're going to go to that now. And last week, I had to cover actually one of the verses because the text was so long, there was just no way I knew I would get through it. So we'll get through it today, but just barely by the skin of our teeth. Verse 17, actually our first 2 points. Let not even one give evil for evil. Think good things beforehand in the presence of all men. Referencing relationships. We struggle with our relationships. Matter of fact, relationships can be one of the biggest issues that we face. If we have a poor relationship and if we have one of these that just keep nagging at us and problematic in our life, what's happening on the inside is we're just eaten up by it. We find ourselves in misery. People find themselves trapped in relationships that is just so destructive. And so this is so important, and it starts off, I want to be very clear, definition of terms is always a major issue. And I see people, I've been talking to 2 teachers in a public school, and just their willingness to turn a definition a little bit. If you can turn the definition of scriptural truth especially, which they were doing, that it can change the whole meaning. It can be something complete. You can make it say whatever you want it to say. And listen, I'm not interested in what you want to say. I want to interested in what God said. And we need to catch that. That's so important. And so this first one, I say all of this because there's 2 principles in our text that seem to be saying the same thing, but they're actually not. The first one is here, let not even one give evil for evil. Not even one. So regarding relationships now, let not even one pay back evil for evil. Don't come to that point that you think, well, they did this to me, so I'm going to do this to them. They did me dirt, I'm going to do them dirt. You know, this is the first principle here. You know, it throws it out very strong right at the beginning here, and it says, listen, make sure you're not, get even, get ahead, payback's a bummer type thing. Make sure you don't do that. The second one that we covered last week was this. Think good things beforehand in the presence of all men. When we have events or we have situations, we start thinking about them. And we're going to get together and we're going to talk about it. It warns you to think good things. If you start thinking and go to the meeting to accuse, if you go to the meeting to blame, if you go to the meeting and you start looking at the problem, you're going to have destruction in this meeting. Listen, the thing I see, one of the worst things that happen in relationships when I get involved in counseling and helping people is they get fixated in the problem. Both people are wanting to come, instead of fixing it, they want to tattle. They want to condemn. They want to accuse. They want to blame shift. They get in there and all they can do is come from every angle. And oh, by the way, Pastor, there's this too. And they look at this, and they look at this problem, and they begin looking at it under a microscope at everything that's wrong. They get problematic, and they're not solution-oriented. Beforehand, but says think good things beforehand in the presence of all men. So what you're doing is before you get together, it tells you to think some good things. Don't go prepared with your magazine full of bullets. Go prepared for healing. Listen, you're either a gold miner or a mudslinger. Anybody can find the mud. You need to come looking for solutions and say, what are our options? How can we make this better? As a Christian, that's what you should want. God always wants restoration. But I'm telling you, one of the greatest problems is when people get together, they fixate on the problem and they start destroying and cutting down and attacking. And we get vicious with it sometimes. Remember that when you come together, you want to have input that heals and not destroys. That in itself is just a huge point here. So point number 2 for us this morning. Well, we covered it last week, but please look at that because you need to check yourself when you're getting together. What you're saying, is that going to help or is that going to hurt? Is that just part of the problem or is this part of the solution now? Move to the solution. Anybody can see a problem. Verse 18. If it is possible, which is from you, make peace with all men. I've told you all the time there's several different ifs in the Bible, in the original language. This if is a little questionable, actually, which one it is, because it has the first part, which is called the process of the if clause, but it doesn't have the fulfillment of it. So I think this one, and I'm just telling you honestly, I think it's just an if. So this is just a classic if for you. If it is possible. The word possible is very important because it's the word, you've heard of dunamis before, we talk about where we get our English word dynamite from. It's a word that can be translated power. It's a word that can be translated ability, that you can do something, that it's possible. So he's saying this, if it's in your ability, if it's in your power, if you can do this, what do? Your side of it, which is from you, you make peace with all men. You're going to the table, you're thinking about it, and so you need to ask yourself a question. Is what you just said, is it making peace? I'm telling you, so many times when we have conflicts that get out of hand, we don't want peace. We first of all want war. We first of all want to give us our 2 cents worth. And listen, that's not worth anything. Just keep it to yourself. We say sometimes, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. Listen, you don't have very much, don't give it away. Be careful there. And so what does it say? At all costs, you start making, I take that back, not at all costs, but you make peace with all men. Do your part to make peace. Now, peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is not the absence of issues, but peace is calmness and tranquility within. So are you bringing calmness to the situation? Are you finding a solution? Are you doing things that bring healing? Listen, if you're not following what God said to do here. And so you need to really check yourself. Take a look at this and see beforehand, before you get in the presence of all men, previous verse, you need to be thinking good things. You need to think, okay, am I going to be saying and doing the right thing here? Because if not, you're coming armed to the situation. You're coming armed to the table, to the meeting, with a cup of gas or a cup of water. Which one you throw on it decides which way this meeting is going to go. Is it going to blow up or are you going to put it out? And your goal, my friend, is to put it out. Every one of you, some of the most intense problems that we have is with relationships. You're going to have them within your family. You're going to have them with a spouse, obviously. You're going to have them with business. You're going to have them in sports. It's relationships. And if you want long-term relationships to do right, you have to do good at this. Your job, be a peacemaker. What did Jesus say, Matthew 5:9? Blessed are the peacemakers. And I always think all of those are contrasted. So blessed are the peacemakers and not the troublemakers. So are you making trouble or making peace? Do you come to the table to solve it? Or are you going to identify the problem and you want to beat them up with the problem? And when you do that, you become nothing more than a nag. Nag, 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 right? And somebody says, finally somebody gets upset because I'm so sick of listening to you. Get off it already, right? It's a problem, folks. And we get to this thing, listen, anybody can nag, and you keep bringing it up, and you all of a sudden get another idea. Oh, I thought about something else. Well, forget it. Verse 19. Do not take revenge for yourselves, beloved, but give place for wrath. For it has been written, revenge, or you can say vengeance, is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. So our next point is now, do not take revenge for yourselves. This word revenge right here, let's take a look at it. Ekdikao. Do you have that? So, you've heard me many times speak about righteousness and justification. Those two words in the Bible are the same in the original language. We just translate it different to kind of speak sometimes a little bit of the active voice or passive voice or something like that, but it's really the same word. This word right here, you notice, right here is dikeo. That is the word, the verb form, and it means to be righteous or to be just. Okay? So what is revenge? Revenge is coming from rightness. And when we get in a conflict and we go after it sometimes, we want to make things right. We want to be justified in our position. We want to set people straight because this is really what happened, and we want to get this thing right. We want to be the righteous ones. We want others to know, aren't I right? Don't you agree with me? So the warning is, back to our verse. Again, ek means out of, by the way, out of righteous. Do not take revenge for yourselves. You don't always, this point is, I think we're on point 4 or 5, you don't always have to be right. You don't always have to be showing up at the table to discuss things and make them understand. Hey, do you understand me? Do you understand me? Do you understand why I did this? Do you understand why I feel this way? We drive that. It's okay to say that once, but listen, when you say it every day, when you go on and on and on and beat them up, you are coming from that point to win. And you are taking, and that's what revenge is. Now, if you were to look up that word ekdikao, if you look it up in an original language dictionary, it'll say this: the execution of justice. That's revenge. You would have never described it that way before, huh? You would have thought of it as payback. You would have thought of something else. But actually, it is the thinking, what we want is we want the execution of justice. We want the execution of rightness. And we hope it happens. And so we want our way. So do not take revenge for yourselves. That's not your place. Notice what he says here. I think Paul, through the Spirit of God, is so great here. He puts this word beloved. If you look that up, it's agapetos. It's the word, it's actually an adjective form that's used here as a noun. But it's agape is the word for, when it says God is love, that is the word agape. And this is that adjective form. And if you look in a dictionary again, it would say, in a Greek dictionary in this case, if you looked at it, it would say, the one who is loved. You know, isn't it something Paul kind of stops here, and he tells us not to always try to be right and always try to get justice done and always try to get everything our way. And he says, oh, by the way, I'm talking to the ones who are loved. Not only you, but you know, a lot of our worst conflicts come with those we love. Right? The most passionate ones we have. Crimes of passion, they're called. And listen, I just think it's so cool God puts this in there. He's talking about all this other stuff, and he throws in this little love thing. You know? Let's not forget that within, especially the circle of those we love most, that God, it reminds us, the one you're arguing with might be the person you love the very most. Or one of them. So that's, you know, an important point, probably I think 5 or 6. Do not take revenge for yourself, beloved, but give place for wrath. Give place for wrath. This is an imperative, which means what? Command. It's not optional. Give place for wrath. What does that mean? I believe this little phrase is thrown in here because you need to understand a couple words. One is you need to understand the word wrath. Remember, orge and thumos is the 2 words for wrath or anger. And both of them have fundamentally one thought. What is that thought? Passion. Whoever said that, great. Passion. He said you can expect when we get in conflicts and we have these relationships that have soured, it becomes passionate. He commands us to give into that. He says, listen, you can expect that to happen. What we do is if somebody gets mad, if Raul gets a little bit mad at me, I say, hey, what are you doing, Raul? He says, well, I'm telling you what I'm doing. So we get mad. Listen, what's worse than having one person mad is having both of you mad. At least one of you keep a cool head, huh? One of you say, this says, listen, you're going to have to give place, or you're going to have to give it a place. Give passion a place. You know what a lot of people do? They use that against people. So, you're mad now, huh? Oh, I can see it in your face. Yeah, I see your lips twitching and that leg going like this. Oh, yeah. And so we use that against them, right? And we take this situation in and we blow it up even bigger. God is saying here, hey, give room. This is a heated situation, and understand, people are passionate about their feelings. They're passionate about what they're thinking. So give place to it. Give it a place. Give it a spot. You could translate that way, even that way. For it has been written, revenge, or you could say vengeance. A lot say that, but it's the exact same word, except this is a verb and this is a noun. Revenge is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. After you've done points 1 through 6, you remember this. After you've done everything you could, he says, what does it tell you to do? Leave it with God. If you haven't solved it in those other points, then what do? You leave it with God. That's the time, a lot of times, we like to become history teachers and remind them the next day we're still mad. We say something. Or we give them the good old silent treatment. How you doing? Oh, that much, huh? Right? We just give them a little bit. And we let them know. We have our subtle ways of letting them know we're mad. But we need to let it go because God says this. Listen, you can trust God with this. I will repay. It's a double compound word, that word repay, verse 19. And it's saying this. In other words, it's 3 words in one. And it says, God is saying, I will give to them. Or I'll give them, or I will go against them. And I will settle this. That's what God's saying. I will be the one that gives to them what they deserve. Don't you take that position. So after you've done everything you can do, you just leave this thing with God and let it go. And then it tells you how you should start acting then. Because that's where we struggle, because we think, well, okay, this is happening. Here's my enemy. Here's the person I'm adversarial with. I have a problem with. How do I act now? I've done everything I could. I've tried to make peace. I've tried to live in harmony. That's been my goal, and it's still not getting better. So I'm going to be spiritual. I'm going to leave it with God. So what does that mean you do? How do you respond to them? What do you say? Verse 20. Therefore, if your enemy should be hungry. Every time you see should, may, or might, it's a translation of subjunctive mode. And when you see an if with it right here in the phrase, it means it's a condition of third class, which means this. It means it might be and might not be. In other words, sometimes when you get in a conflict with somebody, they don't want to talk with you at all. So you're not going to have a problem. But this says, even if you have a problem with somebody, and if they show up and they say, hey, I'm hungry, give me some food. You say, what? The guy that was griping about everything yesterday comes to me and wants me to do something for them? You can drop dead. If you want food, go get on your knees and chew the grass, pal. You know, we're mad. We're upset about that. We're saying, get off it, man. What nerve? Haven't you had that happen? Come on. Yeah, you've had somebody really treat you bad and then they come ask you for something? And you go, oh, beat it. Hey, what does it tell you to do? So if your enemy should come to you, and he might not, but if he's hungry, what do? Feed him. You know that word feed? That's a verb. And it's an imperative. And it's not just an imperative, it's a present tense. So if they come to you once and they say, hey, could you give me some food? Because you've given this to God and you're really being spiritual about it. And remember, the Bible does say, love your enemy. You're gracious, you're kind the way you do it. You don't say, okay, brother, I can't believe you showed up here. Shove it. Stuff it. No, you don't do that. You're gracious about it. By the way, the word feed, though, there's several different words for feed, believe it or not. It's very specific. This word means it's like literally breaking up a piece of bread and giving your child, where you give them a little morsel, or you give them a couple little pieces because you give them small-sized bites. That's what this word is. So you don't have to feed them a ton of food. You don't have to serve them a 7-course meal, but you can just give them some. But it commands us to do it. And if they come the day, you do it. And if they come another day. And then notice it says, if they're thirsty, if he should be thirsty, same conditional class, third class, give him drink. Commanded again. Not optional. It's commanded. And so if they come and they say, hey, I'm water. Man, I know we argued about the water yesterday, but could I have some of yours? Give them some water. Give them some water. You're kind of hoping they don't show up again usually. But here they come. Maybe you put something in it that'll make them sick or something. But, for doing this, you will heap burning coals of fire on his head. Now, I've talked to some people, they take delight in that part. They say, man, I'm going to be so nice, and they get them good. That's not the point. The point you're doing this and being nice, it says, they might have second thoughts and realize, Carrie, you're not so bad after all. I really thought you were a beast, but, And I thought Derwin was right all the time, all the things he told me. But, you start thinking about it, and you say, they say you're going to have second thoughts. It was kind of cool. I just throw this out for fun. This burning coals. It's the word, this word. It's our English word, anthrax. It's exactly it, anthrax. And here it means to be, the way it's used, it's of a coal that is a very hot coal, burning hot. And so it's not just kind of, it's going to bother them a little. It's like, man, this thing is a big event. And just wouldn't that be great to have relationships that get better because you've been so good and not so nasty? See, sometimes we think, I'll get even, I'll chew them out, I'll be strong. They won't respect me if I'm not strong. Right? Come on. So I'm standing up for myself. I'm putting my foot down on this one. Right? Well, I heard that yesterday. The problem is his foot stepped in a puddle of mud. Verse 21. After you do all of that, he tells us this: stop being overcome. And literally, this is the correct translation of this phrase here. Stop being overcome under evil. Most translations say, do not be overcome with evil. It's not what it says. It says, stop being overcome. Clearly, anybody knowledgeable in this will say that is the correct translation. Now, what is that? What is it? First of all, it's an imperative. Overcome. It's an imperative. It's a command. It's present tense. So why is he saying this? Because it's within our nature that when we get this mad and we're upset, we have meltdowns. Have you ever had a meltdown? You get so mad, you just, it's like one of those nuclear reactors that melt down in Japan a couple years ago. We just lose it. And then afterwards, you kind of wonder, gosh, why did I get so mad? Why did I lose it so bad? Well, you probably have history, and it's more about some of the history than it is maybe even about that event. But listen, this says, so it doesn't say don't do it, it says stop doing it. Don't let these things affect you like they used to. You know why? You're a mature Christian now. You're a growing Christian now. You're a new person. And so what he's saying here is just stop letting this happen. Now, the next thing, that word overcome, is pretty important. Remember the word, the Nike shoe company? And remember what Nike? That's actually a Greek word. It's Nike, and it means to overcome. It means to have victory. It means to prevail in a contest. And so he says, listen, stop being overcome. Stop having these things, having evil have victory over you. Don't let that happen to yourself anymore. You're actually losing at that point. And so, present imperative, commanded, you need to make sure that this pattern in your life stops. And a pattern is something that is repeatable and predictable. And so you say, that's why it becomes habit. Right? Come on, I want you to think about this, because that's what it is. So what we do here is what it's commanding is saying, it's pretty normal that's what you do. So now what I want here, I want you to form a new spiritual habit. Don't let this thing, and by the way, it says under here. See the word under? That's exactly what it's saying. It's not with, it's under. It's the word hupo. And you let evil put you down, and it gets over you. And evil wins. And he says, stop it. Stop letting that happen to you. Then it uses the same word right here, but it says, but overcome, same word, evil with good. So how do you get up on evil? You don't do them dirt if they did you dirt. They call you names, you call them names. That's not what you do. It tells you exactly what to do. You overcome evil by your being good. Evil won't triumph then. See, if you become evil, then you're just as bad as they are. Right? If you do the same type of thing that they did to you, or worse, it's what's winning there is evil's winning. I heard of two brothers. They got in an argument. And they had this construction company. And one brother thought he would play this trick on him. He was mad at him, so he took and he had a big boulder put in this one dump truck, and he went over to his house and dumped this boulder right in the front yard. And he thought it was so funny, and the brother found out he did it. So his brother went and he got you know what pea gravel is? Just think of gravel. He got a dump truck of pea gravel, and he went and dumped it in his brother's yard. And his brother said, "What the heck are you doing?" He said, "You're rockhead babies." Lot harder to clean up all the babies. So we start paying back. We start taking revenge. We take matters into our own hands. We start wanting to be justified. We want things to be made right. God says, don't do that. Here are some steps you take now, the right way to react and respond to this. But what I want to give you here is I want you to just leave it with me. And trust me that if necessary, I will repay. I will give back to them against what they had done. That's what that word means. And so you leave it. You leave it with God. Let me close with this. The greatest struggles we have, the greatest battles that you're going to have in your life is not on this stuff, though. The battle, my friend, is the battle within. It's the battle within your heart and your mind. And those two will have to be strong in your trusting in God. I promise you, if there's anything we've said this morning, I want to make this the most important. The greatest battles that you will have on all these things we've talked about, it's not what's going on and not even the words you said or chose. It's going to be the battle within your heart and your mind. I believe those are the two control towers the Bible mentions. And you are going to have to learn a word that's used many times. I love the way it's used. If you want to look up this word, look it up in Joshua chapter 1. But it's being courageous. You're going to have to take courage. And you say, well, what is courage then? Courage is being able to stand tall and believe that God is able to get you through this. Now think about that, because when you stand up against your Goliath, courage will help you to stand tall and believe that God will get you through. You can face your greatest fears by standing tall in God's strength. Notice I'm adding that, not your own. And so you're going to have to take courage and be strong and stand there knowing that even, regardless what happens, God has it in control. And that battle that's going on inside you will bring you peace when you can trust God. Isaiah 26:3, thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusts in thee. Trust in the Lord, for in the Lord there is everlasting strength. That's 3 and 4. So that's where you're going to draw your strength from. But I warn you and I encourage you, actually, your greatest battle is what's going on in these two control towers of your life. And you've got to have victory there, because if you don't, you'll have defeats outside. Let's pray.